Hello, Wethersfield family, Wethersfield parents, Connecticut parents, New York parents. When I was a little kid, I discovered a method, a means to discern where and how we could cause positive value nature progressions acts natures everywhere at once. Explain way better than they do with the short words and or with long words and defenses of them and the reasons of that. No. With logic A through Z in countries grouped. Logic that can't defend itself without being reliant upon things like war, while without being self-valued roles of criminally foreign influenced identity ground locations, voices in defenses of those types of identities. So state offensive affronts that are preventing what American history is supposed to be about, where and how those locations could be and where are used by a breaching method that had them not wanting to be, but differentially, increasingly better than perfectly. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Jim Crow laws are about that, let alone slavery. Witch trials are about that. They're about slavery, if they're made up or not, whether they were made up by our founders who were counted or had to counter store the other founders or not, or whether they were made up by those roles overtly with their breaching method that had colonies grouped, extorted, enslaved, too, by having everyone having self-valued already. And by having everyone self-value the sciences, what they abridged, and nature's demonstrations of it, a semi-ancient breaching method, increasingly more probably, and increasingly more demonstrably than what is opined, theorized, and convicted. A semi-ancient criminal enterprise forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded other countries, individually grouped and together, to have to respond to something called criminal insidiousness by using phrases like criminally foreign influenced correctly, but not realizing how simultaneously incorrectly, not correctly, even while realizing it, they didn't know how, they didn't see what was going on. And they forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded what the ancients and semi-ancients couldn't fathom, which is how humanity could forget how and why there is one identity of simultaneous nature that can be used to answer our questions, and that they'd already revealed the languages about, even how and why they are different, even why and how we are supposed to not value. We're not supposed to believe. We're supposed to agree to call the name Allah or not. That's all we have to do. And per the Quran and per the Old Testament too, right at the beginning of the Old Testament, the Quran and the Old Testament say things that the people that are the stewards of the religion will not allow the value of to be spoken. Everyone has identities of logic that are reliant on faith. There are only three branches of government exception tied to them. That is a countless amount of people. They have relativity to databases. Oh, this is what we got. This is how an instance is going. And more relative to where we have our identities mixed. They're attaching everyone and those people around them to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. The breaching method knew that the only three branches of government it could measure and maintain. Just so like it built New York City to measure and maintain. All they could do, well, who's going to be in defense when they try to build it unsafe. That's one way to measure and maintain who was behind our founders. Our founders had to hide their roles from a breaching method because that means they were, in fact, cheaping nature enslaved. Sickly distinctly from everyone. Before our founders were born, slavery was entrenched, North and South America. northern colonies and southern colonies. All they could do. The laws were so crazy against everyone to hurt everyone individually grouped in together, or to be an insidious unity and collusion with that against everyone, and simultaneously blaming other things, other results for nature's demonstrations of it. Nature wanted and needs us to use our words, our names, and words tactically ulterior from how we are forced to have had them entertained. And that when people speak of precedents and statutes, for example, there is a theorized criminal insidiousness that is as nature, but only as criminal insidiousness. And it can be positive nature too. There's, positive and negative are simultaneous identity, simultaneously a conjunction slash hyperconjunction to identity slash hyper identity, as English and the other languages were revealed together to teach. If it was so easy, we could just agree about the name of the hyper simultaneous. See, there's a difference if we have God as a variable. If we pay attention, nature is showing us, as it showed the ancients, God is an algebraic variable per the science that uses the identity of the hyper simultaneous. The hyper metaphysic singular that is self-generating metaphysics plural. What's metaphysics? Oh, it's name dropping. The sciences are abridged. Oh, but these are great universities. They're backed by foundations. All legal treatments. All identity ground voices. They were additional this way. Our voices, human species, volume, individual, group, that per its way, not through this filter. Science is abridged, Constitution abridged. The identities of the notes of music, one part of themselves. They can't look like and be to make more forever nature, unless a little piece of one note, a little piece of one identity of itself as a semi-nature is where the another note, is more in the possession of its own identity than itself, where its identity is also automatically positive to itself. And this is automatically where we are temporary. I mean, the reason we have temporary and lasting is constantly already in demonstration to us. Because as ourselves, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that is three sciences at once, while being that volume, but also being two identities of sequence / simultaneous natures, further being its complete volume, where we can discern from being inside of it. See, but using truth that is using the nature of truth, that is a truth that is a true always, not denying the slightest sequence shift, not denying the slightest illusion, not valuing the slightest delusion. We have experts on logic in modern countries A through Z, with psychiatry, psychology, sociologists, doctors, judges, prosecutors, lawyers, with tactical delusions originally that our founders left us to communicate about it and still. This is part of the reason it's more probable, more practical. We have to take positions and counter positions. One of the positions we have to take is that the Constitution is unabridged. And who denies it will have inherent active and progressive. They do have inherent active and progressive to the refractory nature qualities, aspects in natures. Also, what needs to self-value interbranch switching names. They have been using all instances, all observation and studies of things to hide remote uses of everyone's motivations narratives. For example, when we debate or argue things, if everyone will notice, in every modern country, everyone left out the breaching method. Not by acting. When they blamed on the right on things that we know were true, they self-value that as roles to screen what was worse, was right there, more true, and using those truths for lies. Yosef Mengele, forgiveness is for this. Yosef Mengele, his family, everyone's family, everyone next to everyone, everyone's identity name. Sick. Remember, don't forget slavery was entrenched. Don't forget, what did they blame witch trials on? Not what our founders communicated for them to blame it on. If we use science, if we ask what were witch trials about, if they were made up or not, they were about slavery, because what else was entrenched? And what was that about? It was about a breaching method that had already been sustained against Native Americans. It was still going on. It was consciously using remotely Native Americans at that point, and still, as everyone, because of our use of our differences, we're going to have to either fight with each other or ignore details left out. And with that, everyone's simultaneously pretending to understand people and simultaneously pretending not to understand them dishonestly as collusions with a child abuse that has never been separated from any modern campus. Thank God, in every modern country. Thank God. How could that be good? Because it was not. There's, instead of blaming everyone the wrong things, others ourselves, the way it wanted, we could blame an archetypal criminal enterprise. We could start by blaming an identity of negative value nature progression that is being and having been consciously exploited, and warning everyone and showing everyone with this military exercise with the nuclear nation that I had offered on I don't know if it was in a video or typed, but we get the nuclear holding nations, and we're going to monetize something. I'm going to donate, and then it will be, and whatever we could get for tax reasons and stuff like that, that'll be donated to it in the form of a virtual representative of the species body of volume. Note that how even the judges and police forms of each country, additionally, they are citizens. They are an extension of that volume, or they are criminal insidiousness. All campuses of the law had replaced with what our founders communicated with nature too, though. For example, nature is the one that built the increasing actual, the identity of Native Americans distinctly from, but while as their identity hyper additionally that way as hyper native species body of volume. And then the breaching method entered their education while it took away their education. Everyone's, with people that had already been done to. See, it invested the law to defenses of logic that values the discernment of their identity through contrast, through tactical delusions juxtaposed, where everyone was differentially and is differentially criminally foreign influenced, or they change your words and make you enter this relative to where and to how the presidents didn't flip out angry and enforce quality of fact, human nature, details, and detail properly, and potentials. And or it's simultaneously why they didn't, how they didn't use their position to calmly. See, because if you have make examples of things, the way the breaching method set this up and sustained everything, it not only sustained all identities consciously to entertaining and to using styles and natures of logic that couldn't defend themselves. And fact, human nature wise, identity wise, locations wise, security wise, and simultaneously afford defenses of remote uses of that. When I say forced, we're speaking about slavery, where this subject is like other subjects. They brought them up after having been abused, after having stayed roles with it, even kings, pharaohs. If you are above locations, areas, and states that are simultaneously criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence, and have been, they interbranch all the other identities of criminal insidiousness, of logic, increasingly while self-valuing, needs to keep what nature is actually demonstrating, actually capable of demonstrating, bringing to conjunction / hyperconjunction out of nowhere. At real evolution, fruits and gifts and means, there are means to vet them as that. But see, these have not been evolution's fruits, gifts, means. Republic's dreams are native pure from ancient times before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. So they have styles of logic and of debate and of means to defend that cannot defend themselves and afford discern that quality nature, proper definition of each word, let alone phrases and sentences, let alone bodies like the Republic. From before its smallest finite detail, then while being that distinctly, and while being that actively, distinctly too, and while being that distinctly too as that identity of volume. When I say the word progression, see, all you hear words that you already heard used tactically wrong for others involved with everyone's logic, other motivations too, then all those juxtaposed. Now one has rows, sub rosa, see, deeper than. Before the foundation of modern nations each, a breach was cast, more vast, and yes, more deep. So we must gather here, I'll repeat. The courts and the police, for the only three branches of government exception tied to them. They are a certain type of victim / hyper victim that has been kept with their worst patients and criminals and against innocent people, and rolls with people on and off the state of Connecticut corrections offices. Under the guise of corrections, under the guise of reformation, since before our founders were born, there have been roles with planting sequence shifts, roles with tactically replacing, methodically replacing, and having roles with having had and still tactically replacing what is communicated with what is said. And they're with as roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, not just in the ways that are invisible but discernible. That we have to address also the ways that are hyper invisible but still discernible too. And this means we have to discern what is hyper evidential. If you have black pupils and whites of eyes, and they bring up the subject of slavery, and they leave out how the breaching method was involved with those crazy laws, and how those crazy laws were equivalent to enacted slavery against every single person, distinctly to screen that too, not just to screen it, effectively to employ it as means to measure and maintain. Who's going to sense and speak that? To effectively maintain every nature of independence, every nature of unity as identities of the same insidious, criminal insidiousness nature of logic slash S, a value slash value progression, that the breaching method employed only capable of being remembered by everyone, but one way. And to keep that one way from being discerned. In other words, what is actually proper science? So the invisible but still discernible. We can use it to show everyone when you hear passions being used, especially when they have things easy to make it hide behind, like people who gave their lives. In other words, they have strangers will jump in and effectively, and or if they know the person, that all the arrays of those things. This breaching method employed those differences to force groupthink, to use that which our government reportedly through CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, which our government actually honestly tried to tell us about. When they sometimes, the honest is always juxtaposed with the dishonest, and with where and how a breaching method uses it to measure and maintain distinctly from our own, and then further through our own, through other motivations, nature, needs, apparent, then measuring and maintain where and how. When we say things online, the intelligence community is discrediting us, and with delusions, and butting into our business with other people. They've been getting away with it because the people involved with databases tied locations have had roles with predicate acts that are recorded, connected for them. And with the sense and sensibilities and the conversations and the people next to everybody. Even family members right in our faces with these little magic tricks, what is actually recorded if you take time. They are pretending not to understand your kids when they do understand them. They are pretending not to understand your parents and grandparents when they do understand them. And simultaneously, while they're pretending not to understand them other ways and towards other sequence shifts and other subject treatments. And that's part of a slavery, torture, slander method that is sickly against the elderly distinctly, and sickly distinctly against the veterans. So this is a means to prove to them. Because if you try to deny the elderly homes in that VA locations if you try to pretend they don't have all kinds of demonstrations of how they are criminally foreign influenced, roles of torture, slander, and slavery and cover-ups of that and cover-ups of uses of it and of worse uses of motivations narratives because of worse uses of exception and of exception nature and where it appears to be in demonstration of other. That's one of the functions of a special difference to help us discern that. There is a method by one identity of hyper invisible, but still discernible. Having an identity of relationship to itself, having the only increasing value of that. So functional being an extent of invisible but still discernible, that is still, for example, how it is the core, it is the nature, it is the conjunctions of languages as nature, where they could be, where value is nature / nature is value, left to right, simultaneously while right to left. Value is nature. Nature is value. The sequence / simultaneous nature is a conjunction to the identity of the hyper invisible. Every identity has a conjunction to positive and negative simultaneously. Not just as its value progression as our body. It is in demonstration of these 5 bound identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. Also 3-way bound. 3 ways. Also where and how it shows it is a trinity. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that, which are 3 distinct bodies of the hyper invisible, but still discernible. It is increasingly more probable and is increasingly more practical to convict, to opine and theorize, let alone to convict that Islamic extremism is about how Allah is 5, is 1/3/5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature that can be programmed. There are 5 distinct identities of sequence / simultaneous nature that the ancient snow people draw. Vaccines. I'll teach us things. We could do it really fast, but you guys have to get help. They've been stacking every year since I was a kid. Rolls with and since you were kids. There's a whole bunch of natures and methods of organized crime and of private ones, and the interbranch and insidiousness of people as a logic A through Z, and or really why and how people are motivated to change people's words. Fake them. They've been touching Wethersfield parents. They've been touching little kids, New York parents. These are people tied to New York with the medical community, tied to the interbranch exceptions tied to them. Of course, they're tied to prisons of kids and adults, increasingly getting packed, increasingly tied to people saying, oh, it's about money or this and that. But they're leaving out, as those people, you ask them to follow mandate law, they're switching names. They have wirecrime, they have criminally foreign influenced uses of all the identity of the ground voices, including the interbranch. They will have no difference here because they lost it. They never had it. See Native Dreams. The Navajo. I believe that are the ones. I have to put a link to that. There's no one here now. Let me get that link to the Navajo. Because, excuse me, I hope you. I'm trying to look. NAVAJO. Dreams. YouTube. Because I think it was the Navajo. I don't know the name. there's peace. Here's a I don't know whether I'm trying to get I'm on the wrong page. People, I'm sorry about the interruption. What I'm trying to do is get a video so I can speak about it and have the link, because you're supposed to link things when you speak about them. And some Native Americans say that we must read each other's dreams. And there's a breaching method upon each modern country. And it knew that modern countries would blame other things other than themselves. For example, we're needing to counter things like criminal insidiousness, criminal foreign influences. It knew that it would wrongly and defend that. And how it could exploit that in ways everyone didn't fathom at all locations /SNO. So here, War Chief, Peace Chief is the name of. I'm gonna give you the link. I haven't seen it yet. I know this man, and he cares about Native American history honestly. And one of the reasons you know this is because he admits where and how. They don't remember to know everything. Everyone, I think, I'm not sure if him too, but everyone's missing to an extent the significance of where and how people could force their own people not to speak. It's because there's a breaching method there that was fishing for truths to use for lies. That with lies already standing. And it's not just about lies or not. It's about criminal insidious natures of positive treatments, negative treatments. It's about identities of truth that are not that identity of truth that comes with revelations. Like that one, what are witch trials about? Slavery. How do we know the context? Were all those names and those things? What were they about? That of people hurt because of the color of their skin. By the breaching method, put that here, North and South colonies before our founders were even born, before their parents were even born. They put the switching narratives and roles with it by the countries already involved with it. Science is already having been abridged since semi-ancient times. Prepare our minds, vaccines. Prepare the arts. Prepare to break their hearts and everything. Because hyper-theater can tell no lies. They stole George Washington's identity in our faces as collusion simultaneously with a whole bunch of other countries. And everyone's shocking off to it. They have each age of fact cheaping nature with political logic out of their minds, illusions raw. Yeah! All right, thank you. Vaccines. I teach those things. So they've been using rights to lie, like doctors can hide things about things with their patients, and then they're exploiting like anomaly with that. Now they have lies between the kids. They've already attached to instances where they put little fake things in databases, fake communications between the kids on campuses and off them, and illusion to take pictures for illusions. And it's relative to where and how increasing. One of the answers of why and how things like Jim Crow's hung around and hang around with fact treatments. The campuses failed our answers, the answers our founders left to give. One of the reasons they got away with it is because they've been pretending people have unreasonable logic. They've been pretending our founders had roles with slavery, leaving out how they had to counter extort the other founders. And they could only do that for a temporary amount of time. Everyone had to screen it and pretend other motivations were their motivations for going against crazy laws that they knew had the country's roles with it, all the names roles with it, the company's roles with it. Everyone would seek back through and define who was roles. breaking those crazy laws, everyone to hurt each other and everyone to use the reactions for criminal insidious natures of unities and of independence consciously, shock and awe, and making that employed against our own, while that was already having been sustained. Before then, while they made other natures of employment screening this right on top of it. What furthered most the worst acts and natures of their overt criminal enterprises, of roles with uses of all that actually tied to the immigrant population problems. There are proofs that all our countries have roles with those sick things together. And they were backed into identities, suits and ties, counters, self-valued roles with the difference used to hide. Thank God, that's the same thing. Native Americans don't understand the address, but then further it comes with cipher where they were given directions to understand it. So not only do they have a native, hyper-native species body position and value only increasing by nature shown to us, they have a Native American identity with this that is also only increasingly volume. And it wasn't made up, it was revealed by nature. So we could discern the breaching method that has employed tactically ulterior than it employs. All exception nature on demonstration. Where and how we can make exceptions, deny it's a special use of a special difference with what is variable. And the value, the differences in what is constant and variable. It makes Earth's a special difference where it is variable. We can go like that. We can go away like that. It makes that not happen. Instead, and if we go back to unlike the rest of the species, humanity has criminal foreign influences. And we have self-valued roles with it because the breaching method set up the economies to screen itself. That which nature is increasingly demonstrating to us, a breaching method's presence. What caused slavery? What caused witch trials? If they're both about slavery, a breaching method. What is that which says that our founders, per evidence, had slaves? That's criminally foreign influence logic that is also tactically delusions wrought. Now, the reason they've been getting away with it, they've also been attaching people to fake conversations about religions. Also just fake words and them pretending that people have delusions, that people that didn't even have communications with them or verbal communications with them. All physical communications they lie about too. Whole bunch of names like Lombardo and Leahy and Brian Silver and Rick Cianfaglione. I had nothing to do with Rick Cianfaglione the entire time he was in high school. And I had a middle school teacher who they told, I don't know if he told or who did, he said that a Leahy family, a whole bunch of people confessed, recorded through time more and more. A Leahy family has been roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. The same way I know Brendan Leahy's name, there was a girl who dragged to her death. And I don't know her either. I forgot her name. But she was, she was pointed out to me near a whole bunch of people next to Hartford Hospital. There's a Tomorrow's Market that used to be there. There's an ILO's Kitchen. There are a whole bunch of ways hyper evidentially recorded. Roles planting evidences with foreign and domestic interbranch. There are only 3 branches of government. A lot of people, though. and military, intercities through time with their family members, fake motivations to keep out the foreign names. And foot motivations there, they have the same problem. They're playing a shell game with us. And it's not the motivations, even when they want to need to get a car, have, oh, it's about money, it's about that. When they speak for power, they're out of their mind when they counter, whether, in other words, this is what power is about. Extremism, when they use words like extremism, people, don't forget the black pupils, whites of eyes. We're going to examine. They have been interbranch forging, switching names, roles with instances, consciously. How could that be self-value? We'll examine how they've been used remotely since they were kids, victim predators, / hyper victim, hyper predators. That's how people had motivations for roles with slavery. Crazy laws, sense and sensibilities, styles of logic, positive and negative treatments, identity treatments simultaneously. Only heard. All exception nature were used by the roles with this, nature's needs with this, roles with live progressions from other locations to the locations where the sciences are manifest. They need to pretend other. They make instances where people are going to get mad or they're not going to say anything. And or the exception is used either. They make it so, and they put roles stacking predicate actions in databases. And then they use that down the road with those kids. They made the illusion of us having had verbal communications that never were. Had them their words and our words, other people's words and your words, were faked for you into databases. And then they need to hide that. It's part of the way they're used remotely. Witch trials, if they were real or made up, because they're still being blamed on other things than they were, which is slavery. Which you can't address slavery if you don't address the slavery of our founders and where it begins, the counter. And how it stayed, pretending freedom stood. The only reason it got to be a country is because they coupled with the Native Americans as the human volume law. But appreciating it in the Constitution unabridged, nature itself tells you make Native Americans discerned distinctly from yourselves. But do what you have to do and get the human species volume with the sciences unabridged, with the identity, the hyper-simultaneous lead. This is the first artificial intelligence program and method grounded to appreciate a special difference. And I'm having to speak about it here and delay bringing it because I'm being extorted. And because of the extortion of you and of everyone else and of myself, is because of it is sickly distinctly. And if someone wants to pretend or think they believe they are not enslaved, extorted, their fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature, and their delusions, they should check them while looking at, from a distance, what was constructed. Not as New York City, Manhattan, we know the buildings and the people, just that mass, you can't farm anywhere. No. There are proofs that they took away all the species, means for food for everyone. Means for everything, they made criminal insidious natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. To replace nature's method by that. By the purpose of having 5 distinct identities of positive. There are distinct things that could make them different. There are lists that make the positive left to right. It is the individual. It is the finite. It is the order of the finite. It is the value of the order of the finite. While it is the identity those 5 share. Computers mimic this. See, we have that obfuscated and worse by the experts on not just computer, every science. Because we have the human science obfuscated and the validity of it. Criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that give the benefit of the doubt to interbranch names at the last second there, where they're using, like, even the president right now, they have locked in. You can't go and debate and force equality of fact-keeping nature. Since founding, they've had juries. They're just fishing. They have a whole bunch. Look at the opinions of people and the subjects relative to the subject treatments, and really search the premises treatments. The opinion and convictions. Get those criminals. No talking about the breaching method when they're talking about, like, California impositions, homelessness. Or we like to get the mental health. The mental health locations with the interbranch, they have a whole bunch of natures of organized crime roles and motivations narratives, fake conversations with people, roles with their families and other ones tied to them at those locations. Whole bunch of people with the Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living attaching little kids and their families to fake conversations to their doctors, even into big databases, fake ties to doctors. You bet they're sick with their patients. They have judges speaking fake things in there too. Their families, extended family members, all profiting from it. But it's way worse. So you have to have forgiveness so we can deal with actual, see, their sequence shifts. Those motivations too are a screen. The ones they're hiding too are a screen. The difference is this is a breaching method that uses the course of black pupils, whites of eyes, other than that native pure, to measure and maintain that entertained self-value. Even when you're fighting with those around you or ignoring things because you love them. This thing knew that we can't have love. You can't meet someone, have a relationship if they're playing games with predicate acts that are fact-keeping nature oriented against you. And that's one of the ways they kept and keep each age of fact-keeping nature self-value. Timed collusions, blaming other things, others, or selves, where and how and when any individual needs to use for evidences with their logic and syntax, that and how the existence of slavery itself was and isn't evidence. It's hyper-evidential. There are revelations. The courts were criminally foreign influenced, simultaneously delusions wrought. That's one of the things I know is true always, because I know I didn't make, and that's one of the things it is. That's the nature of truth. See, they have used natures of truth that are not that. They self-value where and how they fight between countries. Oh, because you don't have democracy. They don't know how to speak with. That's their excuse. Then they're defending that. Breaching method measured and maintained fake integrity of identities of law, integrity, fake. Fake! CT must break. And there is C. Thank God they could just step down from their identity. Or far, we've asked, we'll plead. So they have been preventing mandated law with people on off the World Trade Center, on off campuses. They have connections between them made for them. And those connections were also timed uses of the phenomenon of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, people next to body dumping spots, murders, people involved with other methods and natures of extortion that are increasingly tied to and as names involved with instances that we see every day. That where and how we don't realize that, tied to where and how they have criminally foreign influence readings of statute self value, where and how that is measured and maintained by a breaching method. Same thing as in other countries. This breaching method knew that modern countries would blame other things, others, themselves wrongly when defending themselves rightly from needing to, from criminal foreign influences. Things like criminal insidiousness. They knew they would blame other things, others, themselves, names wrong, even when correctly, and defend that. And incapable of defending that while there's still collusions with it, with really for the worst aspects and natures and uses of the overt criminal enterprises. They are subtle though, because this is differentially the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, and the interbranch. That is the word that are the worst ones. Can't be using instances that we can see physically and invisibly. We know through revelations tied to the physical. That too is not hyper invisible. But by the contemplation of those proper treatments of those, we have individual finite truths. They try to say, oh, at the last second, we want to ask you this question real quick. And because we're trying to see something, they're dishonestly. That's why they're supposed to have the right to remain innocent. These are people that have been criminally, they knew this breaching, they knew they would self value criminally foreign influence readings of statutes dishonestly. And so self valuing that having been, that gives them the benefit of the doubt at the last second. That makes them control the conversations and questions, where they are not legitimate, even when they have legitimate questions. They have roles with sequence shifts and with those locations and names having been planting things before that. Time taking pictures of people, pretending not to realize that they knew that they had predicate acts roles lying about what came before that, what was involved with that actually, and is involved with that. And increasingly, a whole bunch of people with the Leahy family and their kids recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with their family, attaching families to fake conversations with themselves and with others and with their family. I never had conversation with the Leahy family. They have something to do with a whole bunch of people on and off Hartford Hospital, increasingly tied to a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime and connected confessions and timed uses of it that go back to campuses and names that have connections between them. From my grammar school and the ones on the wire crimes of the Wethersfield police connected to them, and the names next to the campuses I went to before that, even though they didn't even go there. You know, I don't think. So I know they have roles with names next to those campuses too, with identity theft, fraud, slanders instances, and uses of that. Like with the news media relative to their readings of statutes regarding how laws are harder near schools. So they have wire crimes, acts, and methods. The Wethersfield Police Chief Cintron and a Mazzucato Bakery in Hartford and one in Rocky Hill since before they were there. They have roles of men and women with the intelligence community on off Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. A whole bunch of people tied to Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. And their forced roles, in some way the other countries forced them roles with the World Trade Center attack, attacking bodies and uses of them. These are also people, since I was a kid, involved with uses of different religious locations, identities, for roles of where and how remotely what is actually recorded, everyone is forced to speak to through others. They pretend they don't understand them. You say interbranch, switch their names, and they have more roles with the principal child abuser. They'll pretend they don't understand you. They brought up the school with a whole bunch of things they know that they hid, like tied to a Robert Rodriguez and his roles with shopping centers, and a whole bunch of people tied to the name Cololo and Smith. There's a Judge Smith I had to write a police report years ago, a complaint against. He's involved with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime with middle school kids, attaching kids that they even saw in the middle school to fake ties to each other. They made one fake exception real time, real quick, with someone that wasn't even in my class who came into my class to make it with one of the officers. Also, I caught with the abuses of the kid of various natures, roles with the other ones with the other people. Some Mendez police, fake conversations and ties to me when I was a kid. They had roles in wire crimes, falsified police reports roles. Now these are people on off the Wethersfield Police Department attaching kids that they never had conversations to, fake conversations with them in the database, attaching them to fake conversations with their family members, attaching them to fake conversations with strangers, including the interbranch ones and their family members. Has something to do with their uses of shopping centers and malls. Has something to do with their uses of falsified police reports, wire crimes and acts, and rolls with the names near Town Line Drive, not just on the shopping center. Now, there's a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of different countries with Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people with the youngest kids, attaching them to fake location, fake ties, fake natures, ties to other people with the intelligence community, and a whole bunch of foreign. With, like with a Pandoff family, also with a whole bunch of people tied to the corners along Route 175, I believe it is, Route Wells Road, from Wethersfield and Main Street in Old Wethersfield, and houses on Church Street, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts that are coordinated on campuses and exceptions to that at other locations where they can make it look like it's stuff on that campus. It's connected by predicate acts. It's connected by wrongdoing. It's connected by uses of that, singularly used also by as a breaching method, recorded as evidence, as hyper evidential. For example, for how it's left out, it has been left out of logic, backed by passions and emotions. For example, backed by identities, names, titles, meanings that can't defend the uses of that roles and afford the short words. What is simple, what is complicated, simultaneously, the way it is to be told. Computers are simple and they are complicated, other than how simultaneously that would be described by the experts on it. The experts on English are explaining other, while the law explains other. See, English has the predicate. The value of the predicate is increasing because of the increasing value of its identity volume, its identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that, the hyper invisible. This is identity's course. I'll drop the force. So leading up to the World Trade Center attack, it was and since the cover-ups also had roles consciously pretending other and screening roles, pretending they were about torture legitimately, as roles with the word manifesto with the intelligence community, has all kinds of roles with hospitals and with names next to hospitals, and with plainclothes police forms, and with acting professors, and news media predicate acts roles with different news media and their family members. Whole bunch of people on and off names tied to on off Church Street in Old Wethersfield. Recorded roles with predicate acts of various natures, mail crime, wire crime. They have a whole bunch of roles with that as their roles and backgrounds, planting predicate acts on campuses with the FBI, CIA, their family members, military, foreign and domestic, teachers having conversations with teachers, people with shipping locations, UPS confirmed, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Rolls with people with a Joshua Stryker and Eric, and people with the name Oliveri and Aiello, who had spots in on off Trinity College involved with FBI, military, foreign, and domestic. Whole bunch of Russian families. I mean, a whole bunch of people, Russian. I mean, people tied to a Peron. What's the name? That name too. Involved planting evidences, but and child abuse is also medical and sexual. People Peron and with investigations against such. In other words, they've been attaching little kids as victims of all kinds of natures and adults to fake conversations about it because they have roles with criminally foreign influence, identity, ground, locations uses, instances uses. Then they pretend under the guise of corrections and you know they're making people hide what's actually recorded. I saw an outside of my grammar school before a kid who came in when I was in fourth grade. A red claw. I don't know who it was. I never saw his sister on campus or off when I was in fourth grade. Already, part off campus, the executive branch recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles they knew. They they sensed they were spying on and fishing from when I was in first grade. I love my schools. I loved everybody. All exceptions are exception nature that appeared to be a demonstration of the thing. They're faking things in databases that for everybody. They're faking motivations and sequence. They can't get away with it. That's why they're switching names. And they're hiding the path because they're recorded. There's means to discern. There are recorded uses. In other words, that's one of the things that are constantly that ties those people. They're people that were tied by time confessions and demonstration of uses of the ground locations by people when I was a kid. Had roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and interbranch falsified police reports. Same kids that would go in there with their families and speak with the police. Same kids had to give affidavits. Now they got their own kids, people I don't even know the names of, try to make fake exceptions all kinds of ways. Whole bunch of people tied to what Christopher Walters has a whole bunch of investigations, investigators, and judges, and people intercities involved through time with the intelligence community and where they've been, where they have criminally foreign influence uses of people and families and their neighbors next to schools involved with identity thefts and frauds and slanders. They have police forms that have been since they were kids. Some of them have badges. They've been coaching the other kids, and the ones that actually have ties to those doctors, those are sick, fake doctors. Delusions rot too, so they switch names now. There's also a Judge Killian, who's one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with some FBI and some child sex offenders and medical offenders of little kids. As a judge that speaks fake things into records. Also with a Judge Smith years ago, I had to put a complaint against him. And female judges switch names. Female state's attorneys switch names roles while they allow falsified police reports and arrays of them in confessions tabs. They put the charge of harassment, for example, and they put confessions and they keep changing the falsified police report, but switching officers' names, the ones that weren't even there. And then they give you no writing to respond to. So the switching names is increasingly relevant and relative, also because they have the prisons and the forensics locations names as ones who had timed rules on and off the campus with predicate acts when I was a kid. And now I caught them on and off the same campuses and uses of that time. Rules with untimely death, even if it wasn't It was made up by the intelligence community. A whole bunch of people tied to my neighbors before and now that had connections made for them with their uses of their kids, forced roles with untimely deaths, narratives, and predicate acts of other natures on Trinity College, as names on and off CCSU that had roles with investigators through time, planting evidences at locations with judges and prosecutors, sequence shifts, spreading lies and rumors about people, criminally foreign influence uses of those databases of their own, of their family members, of the names involved then and now with the principal child abusers campus that were brought up by roles with untimely deaths, also off Trinity College with the same names, and ones involved also with other credible threats of violence with poison with the intercity connected names have roles with poison threats, smoke threats. They have the fire departments involved with it. They're hiding behind their roles with Russians, with fire departments, with identities of law, with their uses of their names and of other people's names. A whole bunch of people tied to Wethersfield schools, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A whole bunch of people tied to, and the FBI, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also, neighbors tied to Eric Jensen. He's one of the ones I only saw one time real fast outside my car, outside of his car on my street. But he's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of different countries with Newington locations. I don't know where he lived in Wethersfield, but with people near me. And he said on Copper Mill. And I saw that name on thing. I never saw him or knew anything about him on there. He said he's got people on that street. And the Morrows also have roles with predicate acts on the street with foreign and domestic medical, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people on off campuses, putting predicate acts in databases with kids that aren't even in the same classes. And they try to make fake exceptions with the judges that are speaking and having spoke fake things into records with their extended family members. Also, all kinds of tricks with narratives and backgrounds with databases. There's a Spada family, that a Cololo family. That's the Cololo family. There's an Officer Sullivan. I don't know. It sounded like a male to me with a cracking voice, but they said they only have one Sullivan, and it's a female. But she brought up the name Cololo and with the Wethersfield town offices, which since I was a kid, Wethersfield town offices, the library, and the you know spots next to the campus are involved with predicate acts that are connected increasingly. They have a whole bunch of names from Middletown and Middlesex Community College, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a Joshua Julian with social media interbranch and intercampuses, with abuses of children, sexual, medical, and other natures of them, and on and off the campuses, attaching themselves and their family members to fake conversations with themselves and others, and about juxtaposed natures of organized crimes, acts, and names that they had roles with before those federal criminals were even caught for that stuff. They were pretending stuff up with a whole bunch of people with the name. Um, with co-defendants like John LeConche. There's a John LeConche, and Heather Hansen and Joe Domoro said that John confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed. A Don LeConche has predicate acts against me, roles with them, and against others of each age. I never had a conversation with her in my life. They try to make a fake, pretended ties to her. That's one of the co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. A whole bunch of people tied to the name Fred Grisey, involved with New York City, with medical racketeering and criminally foreign influence uses of the family members through time that have been with the schools. And each age of their fact sheet because they have each age of correlation nature. That stupid, sick, fake punk in the way of nature's answers. New York City, get my back. Get them on paper. So Connecticut news media fake conversations about the World Trade Center with me, attach me and others to fake locations, fake ties to doctors also as a kid. I never had no tie to a mental diagnosis as a kid. They have doctors and their family members from medical locations. They have spots next to schools in Hartford and Wethersfield. They're spreading lies about people. These are the people that are online pretend they don't understand people. While they're putting sequence shifts, they're pretending passions and emotions while they're stacking other things and with switching names, faking names, so you don't know who it is. But I know it's a whole bunch of people with the police chiefs and the Wethersfield police chief's Facebook page. There's a Joshua Schumack, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed as one of the ones involved with identity theft, fraud, slander since he was a kid. Whole bunch of falsified police reports, natures of organized crime roles for people tied to him. He demonstrated it with his mother. They also have roles with child offenders with the Wethersfield Police Department through time, where it is now and where it used to be. He places next to it. There was a Gerard or something like that. You know, they might have apparently they attached me to fake conversations with him, with a whole bunch of people with conversations with the coaches of the teams, because they have the different sciences, the departments. They have the sciences of bridge. There are uses of that since before our founders were born. There are uses of all locations, criminally foreign influence. They've been pretending people uses of drugs into databases. Then they're pretending, they're pretending the fake locations. They have schools in Hartford on Park Street. They have people involved with judges and prosecutors on off Lena's Pizza with medical abuses of kids, sexual, medical, overt criminal enterprises, people with the former director of FBI's Robert Luskin, his attorney Robert Chevery with that location through time. I fear God to hide and plot. Make sure I get them on paper fast. They should be switching and forging names. There's a whole bunch of people with the name McGee that have been switching names. That's three different. For the Wethersfield police on falsified police reports, they have extortion threats and worse against me and others, where they swear that's one of the ways they threaten people. They switch names and confess that. Now, they've been doing this with wire crimes too, the Wethersfield police. They have a whole bunch of people with Mendez police on off Fox Connecticut News and the building next to it. Also, with a whole bunch of people with Social Security, with medical, foreign, and domestic, involved with a whole bunch of security, a whole bunch of medical location scams, cram downs of Social Security money, thefts of it, tactical delusions, fake things in databases. Way worse they are. More than we need. Recede. Romulus is here. No, get them on paper. Wethersfield into branch. Let's go. There's this police chief, Cintron. There are more people that use my name with the interbranch. I'll forgive them to get them onto paper. They waste any more time, they're gonna get. That's a predicate act. That's what has been involved. That's what it is, because you guys have to be the fake conversations with World Trade Center attack. No, and I was in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center's towers right before the attack. No, with the same names tied to the ones there, involved with insidious things on all that attack location. Ones who have been doing it leading up to it, as ones have been in these cases with me, and these arrests against me, and the names involved with it, and their motivations, narratives. I'd fear God to hide and plot. There are more people with West Hartford campuses with the police forms. Their uses of their identity fake. A whole bunch of people with the whiting forensics have roles with campuses I went and had crime as good roles with various natures of organized crime with names tied to the same house/S and uses of the difference between that also recorded. Oh, make sure you guys get this heard by Judge Napolitano, Judging Freedom. They've been using his faith. They've been using online. They can't defend their logic on paper and their uses of exceptions in exception nature and the Constitution on a bridge. They pretend not to realize that it's not about what amendment is about what. Because some of that, if you don't have the other amendment defended, you can't defend yourself. Fix the name switching and forging into branch and the physical illusions and the fake conversations with me and others. Get on paper fast into branch and the private tie to you. Let's go. I'll make it worse because I want the foreign names like um, uh, O'Sullivan, also involved with the weather police, forging, switching names. I also confessed people with the name Scalora involved with predicate acts on my street, with this Joshua Julian, also involved with predicate acts on my street, and on off the Facebook page of the principal child abusers campus. Fear God to wait and be cowards. Make sure I get a response. Wethersfield parents and kids, get me a response. You tell the cops, get on this thing. You don't hide, you punk cowards. Don't talk like that to the police. But you know, if you did, it's justifiable there. Get them into branch on paper. With the courts have been rules at the crime scenes, self-valuing the fake information too. They're not going to get away with the criminally foreign readings of statutes. Please get. I know they want to be bigger than that. I know they want to be better than that. So I know Judge Napolitano, if he realized, get them on paper from the names forging and switching, please. And the Wethersfield schools, and the Hartford schools and Rocky Hill schools, and then the Britain schools, because they were brought up at once, intercities, for per phenomenon. They're also hiding what I caught them doing. Fear God. Fear God. More credible gun and poison threats and rape threats are tied to the court's names, and as the ones with the gangs and the prisons tied to them, and the medical, and that are putting fake things in databases. Whole bunch of people tied to these people. Make sure they get on paper real fast.